Hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. I used to think that working in corporate meant burnout, but I've learned it doesn't have to. And this is coming from someone who was in corporate for nearly 7 years, was extremely burnt out, extremely exhausted, and I ended up leaving corporate, not for those reasons. I wanted to start my own business and turn into coaching. But a lot of it was that I was feeling so stressed out, so burnt out, and I thought that leaving corporate would fix all of my problems. And honestly, it took me like a year to 2 years to finally feel good. I left corporate in July of 2022. So it's my 3-year anniversary. And probably the last 6 months or so is when 6 months to a year is when I've been feeling actually good in my body and actually feeling good. The thing is that like if I hear a Teams notification, I get goosebumps. I feel stressed. Like I still have PTSD from a lot of those things. And the thing is that yes, I felt all of those things and I was stressed and burnt out. And at the end, corporate wasn't giving me what I needed it to. But that doesn't mean that corporate is bad. And I think that corporate, or we can call it working a 9 to 5, it doesn't necessarily need to be in a corporate company. I'm just using that as sort of the base for this conversation. Corporate or 9 to 5s tend to get a bad rap in certain circles, especially online when we're glorifying running your own business, working freelance, being influencers, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with those things either, but we tend to glorify those and say that, oh, corporate or 9 to 5s are bad. But I really want to, in this episode, because pretty much all of my clients work in corporate or some sort of 9 to 5. So I want to actually reframe this. And I want to reframe how we can actually thrive in corporate, what it means to thrive, and how we can not be burnt out. Because a lot of my clients come to me and say, I don't like my job. I don't like, my team, my manager, the company I work for, whatever it is. And they think that changing jobs and moving to a new company is going to fix everything. And while in some ways changing jobs can help, especially if you have a bad manager, you don't align with the, morals or ethics of the company, it isn't going to it's not a guarantee that you're not going to be burnt out, right? You can still be burnt out even at a great company. So I really want to talk about how we can prevent and manage burnout and how it actually starts from within. It's not about the 9 to 5 that you work for. And again, it's not to blame ourselves. I don't want to put any blame on us. It's more about taking back control and taking back the power. So I want to reframe it as corporate can actually offer stability, benefits, structure, and even creativity, but if you set it up right for yourself, okay? So let's talk through this. So as I mentioned, I really think, especially since COVID, social media has glamorized entrepreneurship, freelance life, but it's not for everyone and it shouldn't be. I've worked in corporate and I've worked freelance and I've done my own business. I see both sides of the coin and there's positives and negatives to all of them. But there's a lot of things that working in freelance or having your own business is really challenging and doesn't regulate my nervous system, right? So there's a lot of positives and negatives, but you have to look at what's going to be best for you. And I think that a lot of times we think, oh, corporate equals selling your soul, but it doesn't need to equal that, right? I work with a lot of neurodivergent, high-achieving, creative, value-aligned women, and many of them thrive in corporate with the right boundaries, right? With the right boundaries. And I also want to normalize loving corporate. I think there's like a trend coming back on social media that I've seen that like people are starting to, love corporate and talk about the benefits of it. But there's so many benefits, right? You have structure, right, in your day-to-day. You have a team that you can work with, that you collaborate with. There's career growth opportunities. You have benefits like healthcare, PTO, right? There's so many positive things that can come out of corporate that I think we really don't think about or we don't put as much emphasis on, right? And there's so many benefits that work for so many people. I personally wouldn't be able to run my business or work freelance or be a great coach if I didn't have my corporate experience. I learned so much in corporate. I mean, Everything from, interacting with people in different cultures, working with teams. I learned how to be a great leader in corporate. I learned the nuances of corporate, how benefits work, how pay structure work, how to ask for a raise, how it works. The reason I can help my clients in these aspects is because I've been through it, because I've been through it as an employee, because I've been through it as a manager. I've seen it all the way, and I can be a better coach because I've gone through those things. I definitely grew up in corporate. I started in corporate when I was 22, and I was pretty mature for my age. I always was, but it did give me a sense of like growing up and kind of becoming the person that I am. And I made so many friends there. For me specifically, and I know this isn't everyone's story, but I moved to a completely new continent, like literally halfway across the world, and I was working freelance, and then I decided to work in corporate because I felt like it was hard to make friends and hard to meet people, and I wanted that social aspect. So that's really why I went into corporate in the first place. And I met so many amazing people that I'm still friends with to this day, like many people that I'm still friends with. Networking is great in corporate, right? Having those connections, working with people, being in that professional environment, in that international environment, trying new things under an umbrella, right? The thing with corporate is like you can try different things and it's not your problem if it doesn't go well, if that makes sense, because it's not your money the company is using, right? Like there's someone bigger out there making decisions. You're someone small in the company, and that can be a good thing. And you have the ability to try new things without it being, an issue. So I personally would not be here today. I wouldn't be the kind of coach I am, the kind of business person I am, if I didn't have that experience. It was extremely beneficial and extremely helpful for me. So I only say that to say that there's so many positive benefits of corporate. But of course, there are ways that you can burn out, right? And I want to talk through kind of some of the ways that even I, or maybe that I've seen my clients burning out, that you can avoid so that you don't get burnt out in corporate. So the first thing, which I see often, especially with high achieving neurodivergent women, is overperforming from day one. Feeling like, okay, they've given me this job and now I need to prove myself, right? So they give 110%, 150%, 200%, right? And the thing is like they've already hired you because they think you're right for the role. You don't need to give 200%. You don't. What you need to do is be consistent, but not performative. Let your boundaries build trust. I always tell my clients, I will say this till I'm blue in the face, do not give more than 100% until you know you're going to get a promotion in the next 3 to 6 months. That is the time to give over 100%. Otherwise, if they're not paying you more, you do not need to give over 100%. You do not need to do the most. Do what's on your job description. Of course, be a good human, be kind, be helpful to your team members, all of that. But you do not need to give over 100%, because the thing is if you give 200% from day one, that is what they think your 100% is. So then when it comes to promotion time and they're like, oh yeah, you have to do all these extra things to get promoted, which is usually the case, then you're like, okay, I can't do anymore because I'm already at 200%. It doesn't allow room for you to grow because you're already doing the most. You need to be strategic about what you do. You need to be strategic. The next thing that causes burnout in corporate is not taking real breaks. And I'm talking working through lunch, skipping PTO, always being available, checking emails after work hours. I cannot tell you the amount of people and clients that I've talked to that will literally sit at their desk and eat lunch while they're working. I cannot fathom this. Like, you are being paid in a way that you can take a lunch break and take breaks. When I worked in corporate, we did like a percentage or amount of hours that people were actually working, right? We had a 40-hour week and we had an hour lunch break in corporate, and we took our hour lunch break. We obviously didn't eat for a whole hour unless we went somewhere, and then obviously it took longer. But if we were just in our kitchen, even eating, we would sit there and chat the whole time, or we would go do something else. If we still had time for our lunch break, we'd go down to the store and get snacks or whatever. Like, we would always do that because your lunch break and your breaks are tied into that. So what I was going to say is that we did a breakdown of analytics of like how much you're actually being productive during the day. And it's usually like 5 to 6 hours a day. You're not being productive for 8 hours. That's not something that people can expect from you, to be productive for 8 hours. That's crazy, right? Your pay is set up in a way for you to take breaks. You need to take them. And I think that this is definitely, maybe it's more part of European culture. Like for us, it was never a question to take our lunch breaks and take breaks. We always did. But I would always go to lunch with my team. I was in corporate for almost 7 years and I never ate lunch alone once. And I was in the office 4 days a week. I never ate lunch alone because we were always together. We built camaraderie. We built community. I had lunch with different people. It was always so fun to do that. And my action item to you is to schedule your breaks and take them. So even if you're taking like a 10-minute break, like you should be taking 10-minute breaks every other hour at the minimum. Go for a walk, go get a coffee, go walk around the office. If you're at home, take a break, do something around the house or just chill and scroll TikTok. Do something that's actually going to be a break. And these are the things and the boundaries you need to set from day one. Same with taking your vacation. Take your damn PTO. If you have 20 days, if you have 30 days, it doesn't matter. Take your PTO. That's why you're there. It's built into your pay structure. Again, I will say this time blue in the face. If you are not a doctor or saving lives, your marketing job is not going to go down the drain without you or you taking your PTO. In Europe, and like in my position, I was in a leadership position. I had 21 people under me. I took a 2-week PTO, didn't check my emails once, and there was no issues because obviously I set the team up before I leave so that there was someone in charge that could help them. They knew what they needed to do, all the things. I did not need to check in on them and they didn't need to check on me when I was away for 2 weeks. It didn't need to happen. Go outside, move your body, do what you need to do. It's not normal to sit at a desk for 8 hours straight. Take your breaks. The next thing we tend to do, which causes burnout, is letting work bleed into our personal life. So you have work hours. So work within your work hours, okay? The constant emails, checking Slack, late night, checking in, that is like so bad to your mental load, working after hours, thinking about work after hours. We already think too much of work. We already overanalyze everything. Why are you checking your emails and your Slack and your Teams messages, right? So the action here is turn off notifications outside of work, whether it's on your laptop or your phone. Set the boundaries. You need to set these boundaries with your boss, with your coworkers early on, because if they think you're going to be always available, it's going to be harder to turn that off after the fact. Something I also talk about is having an energetic cleanse after work. So because, when we used to work in the office, and I say this is like pre-COVID, like most of us or many of us worked in the office at least most days, we would shut our laptop and then we'd come home, right? That would be our quote unquote cleanse of like coming home from work. But now that we work mostly remote, or many of us work remote, you have to have some sort of energetic cleanse and the act of quote unquote leaving your job, right? So that could be shutting your laptop and taking a shower, shutting your laptop, going for a walk. Do something that doesn't have to do with technology for 5 or 10 minutes after work to tell your body and your mind that you are shutting down the work mode right now. It is going away until tomorrow, and then you're going to be moving into the next part of your day. This works super, super well. Again, like cleanse yourself, shower, go on a walk, do what you need to do, and move away from your laptop. The next thing we do that really causes us to feel burnt out is not advocating for our needs. So this can be advocating for accommodations, clarity, a promotional path, right? I want you to practice micro advocacy at work. These are small and consistent conversations that build trust and support. So I talk about this often with my neurodivergent clients, people who need accommodations at work or things that will help them. And I talk about with them like how you can ask for those things. And you don't need to say, hey, I'm neurodivergent, help me. You say, hey, this is what would help me work best. Could we please talk about it? Whether it's taking, break at work. I had someone that liked to walk on a walking pad during meetings because then she could concentrate better. Maybe it's you need to take 5-minute breaks every hour. Maybe it's that you have a doctor's appointment every Monday at 3 p.m. you need to go to. Like, list those things that you actually have to do that are priorities for you. And from day one, advocate for yourself, because then that will become the new normal. Okay, so let's talk about what thriving actually looks like in corporate. I mean, we kind of can guess it based on what I just said was the ways we don't thrive, but I want to specifically talk about how we can thrive in corporate, okay? So the first thing is you're not working overtime, okay? Unless they're paying you, and even if they're paying you overtime, you do not need to work overtime constantly. In your contract, it should say that you have a certain amount of work hours. You do not need to constantly work overtime. If it's going into your work-life balance, it's going into your life and how you live, you do not need to do that. You also have to have time and energy for life outside of work. If you're draining yourself at work every day, you won't have time for life or energy for your life. And then it goes in a bad cycle, right? Because you work really hard. You're so tired that you can't do anything fun or anything for yourself outside of work. So it keeps you even more exhausted, even more burned out. Then you do it again the next day and so on and so forth. It doesn't work, okay? You also need to be very clear on your responsibilities and expectations. Again, asking what your responsibilities are, what the expectations are of you, and you also giving your expectations to your boss, to your colleagues, whoever it is. I also recommend having a system for protecting your energy. So I talk a lot about morning and night routines, which I think are super important, whether it's nervous system regulation, whether it's not being on your phone, whether it's mindset work, but also having rituals that work for you. For example, like taking your hour lunch break, or having every Thursday you have 3-hour focus time where you don't check emails, right? What are those things that you're going to do to protect your energy? What are those systems that you are going to implement? The next thing you need to do in order to really thrive in corporate is trust yourself to say no or ask for help. Again, you don't need to say yes to every project. You absolutely can ask for help. Set the tone from the beginning of what you need and what is going to work for you. And I just want to mention too that just because you're setting boundaries, just because you're not working more than 100%, you can still make lots of money. You can still move up the corporate ladder. You can still be great at your job. I think, again, the stereotype or what we think is like the only way to move up in corporate is to kill yourself, work so hard, do all those things, but that's not the case. Like, you can absolutely work 100%, take your hour lunch breaks, take your break, don't check emails after work, and still be great at your job and move up the corporate ladder. You absolutely can do that. These things are possible. In fact, I think corporate is the best place to do this because of the structure and the boundaries that you have and that you can create for yourself. So the thing is, and just to kind of close everything out, is you don't have to leave corporate to be happy. You don't have to leave corporate to set those boundaries, right? If you're feeling stressed out, burnt out, first think about what are those boundaries that you can set. What are you doing that's too much right now? What are some things you can do to advocate for yourself, right? Let's think about those things first before we think of quitting or changing a job. Let's see if we can make those changes first. And again, corporate can be amazing, right? If you love structure, you love getting those benefits, you love having a team, working with other people, corporate can be, or a 9-to-5 can be a great place for you. I want to leave you with 2 small prompts that you can either think on or journal on that relate to this. The first one is, where might you be over-functioning at work? Where might you be over-functioning at work? Okay. And then the second one is, what small boundary would make your job feel 10 times lighter? So what small boundary would make your job feel 10 times lighter? Okay. Think about these, journal on them, really see what small things you can start to implement in your day-to-day. And I guarantee you will start seeing a positive difference. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate it on either Apple or Spotify if you're listening. This really helps me boost the podcast, as I want to make sure as many people can listen as possible. And of course, subscribe and, leave 5 stars if you're excited about it. I hope you all have an amazing week. I hope you're enjoying the beautiful summer weather, and I'll catch you in the next episode.